This is a Gear Network production.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy, Mr. Perez, and you're listening to the Better Live Than Dead podcast, brought to you exclusively on Gear Network. Listen in.
How is it going, everybody? Episode 64 of the Better Live Than Dead podcast is happening right now.
Episode 64.
And I do apologize in advance for the if the audio does not sound so well. My laptop that normally we record on, we have issues on at the house, is continuing to have issues. So I was going to try to Skype the call tonight and get a little bit better audio quality. But that's not going to happen because the computer is not cooperating, to say the least. So we're here. Yeah, we're here. And we're going to talk sports. And, you know, again, sorry if the quality is bad, but we can only do so much with the no budget that we have.
Exactly.
I want to start just jump in head first because a lot of stuff has happened tonight. A couple surprising things, a couple not so surprising things. But first off, I want to start, let's see, we will start with Major League Baseball.
Let's do it.
First off, the Toronto Blue Jays and the Kansas City Royals have advanced to the ALCS. Now, a big important news piece out of that, Toronto pitcher Brett Cecil has a significant tear in his calf muscle, will be out for the rest of the season, it appears. That's a big loss for that bullpen. But with that matchup, Toronto and Kansas City, it's essentially, you know, Kansas City is improved from last year. I mean, their rotation has been a weakness, but if that rotation with Edison Volquez, Johnny Cueto, if they can lock down now, being in the ALCS, you know, 3 or 4 wins away. It's 4 now, not 3. 4 wins away from another World Series, back-to-back World Championship appearances. They're not going to need much. I mean, the lineup is great. Rotation is The bullpen's great. Toronto is going to need luck. I mean, we saw in the series with Texas, Game 5 on Thursday night, or Thursday afternoon into Thursday night, where Texas took the lead on a call you don't see happen a lot, which essentially batter's hand was in the way, and the ball hit the batter's hand, and the throw back to the pitcher. But if it was inadvertent, the ball's live. Runners can advance at their own peril, which the go-ahead run scored. And then the next half inning, Texas committed 3 errors. Game was tied.
You never see from them.
You never. No, never, ever. And Elvis Andrus was the one that was at the center of it, which is even crazier because he's very good defensively.
Absolutely. And it was Wednesday.
It was Wednesday? Oh, yeah, because today's Thursday. Well, today's technically Friday now. So, yeah, sorry, Wednesday. I'm going a little off track here. I was at a concert while it was happening, so I'm checking my phone, and I'm like...
Yeah, man. How was crew?
We'll talk about it. Don't worry. We'll talk about it. Remind me. We'll talk about it in a few. I don't want to get too splintered here. I want to stay on the topic. Jose Bautista hit a 3-run jack, put him ahead with a bat throw for the ages, bat flip for the ages, whatever you want to call it. It was amazing. So that series in the AL is going to be great. Now, over in the National League...
Hold on a second. Before we go to the National League, did you see that a fan has already got that bat flip tattooed onto his thigh? Yeah.
Fans are weird.
It was a good tattoo, though.
I know, but fans are so weird, dude. Just so freaking weird. Actually, while we're talking about it, I'll get the things popped up on my phone. I want to brag real quick. I remain perfect in the. I guess we did a baseball pick'em. You know, we could say we did that. Well, we can say we did that because we never really put anything on it. We just said pick the teams and we'll go. I still remain perfect. I picked Toronto and Kansas City in the AL. Picked Houston to beat the Yankees. I also remain perfect in the National League, which we'll talk about in a minute, but I want to go back to Lewis and Johns. I can't remember. I think, who did you have winning the World Series?
I think I picked Toronto with the caveat of if the Yankees won the play-in game. If they didn't, I had Houston.
Well, I was going to say, because right here I have the one where it's the Yankees beating Houston, Kansas City beating, and then Kansas City, Toronto going to the World Series and winning. The National League on that side looks really bad. And then...
No, I had Kansas City. I would have liked to see Houston do it.
I know, that's what I'm saying. The brackets have the Yankees winning, Kansas City going to the ALCS.
Right.
In both these brackets. I should have marked them, but I forgot to, and I don't have time to go check on Twitter to see who was whose. But I'm still very confident in my predictions. But anyways.
You got the Cubbies winning, don't you?
I do have the Cubs winning the World Series. We'll talk about that in just a second. We'll get over there. Now, before we get into the Mets-Dodgers series, I want to ask you what you thought about the slide from Chase Utley on Mets shortstop Ruben Tejada.
Is that the one where he broke his leg?
Yes.
I feel like you see that all the time in the game. You know what I'm saying? You see them go for the second baseman to try to throw off the timing when he's trying to get the play. But with that being said, he went into that slide awfully late.
And wide, too.
And very wide. And that looked dirty to me. I probably would have suspended him for that.
Well, he did get a 2-game suspension that he appealed. He was in the lineup, or he did pinch hit tonight on Thursday night in the final game of the series in Game 5. Just getting right to it.
I would have made it so he couldn't have played. I mean, that was obviously dirty ball.
The Dodgers held him out of Game 4, so
right.
I mean, I guess that's good. But they were also in New York, and they probably didn't want to riot.
True that.
The Mets take Game 5 against the Dodgers, and they will host
tonight.
That was a great game. They will host Game 1 of the NLCS against the Chicago Cubs, who defeated the St. Louis Cardinals. And I'll tell you what, the Cardinals have been the model franchise in the National League for the past, I would say, 5 or 6 years. They've been very good, very tough to beat. Whenever someone leaves or gets dealt away, they have a new piece to fill the hole and be even better than the guy before him. But I feel like the Chicago Cubs are announcing their presence, kind of like what Houston did when Houston almost went to the ALCS this year. The Cubs took it a step further in announcing their presence, saying, hey, guys, we're for real. We may not win the World Series this year, but beware, we've got a damn good baseball team and a very deep farm system, and that's what the Cubbies are doing. They've got a great pitching staff with Jake Arrieta, John Lester, Jason Hamill. I know started, I want to say he started Game 4 for the Cubs, but you know, it's just absolute madness. It's just absolute madness to see the Cubs this well. I mean, Wrigley was off the chain. It was the first series they ever clinched at Wrigley Field, which locks up their first NLCS appearance since 2003, which you may know as the year that Steve Bartman became famous for all the wrong reasons. And then before that, it was, this is the second time in the wild card era that they've been to the NLCS, and it's going to be one hell of a series because you figure they'll start off with Arrieta, they'll start off with Lester. The Mets have a great team, but I'm still sticking with the Cubs. I mean, either way, at this point, you know what? With the Final Four being Toronto, Kansas City, Chicago, and the Mets, I'm not mad. Whoever wins the World Series, I won't be mad about it. Now, I didn't care with the Dodgers, but they spent $300 million. Like, you want to see them fall, and they fell ever so graciously. Big fireball. The one thing I want to point out here that's a lot of fun, too, a lot of fun for baseball historians, fans of the game, all that stuff. Keith Law of ESPN tweeted out that the Final Four in the Major League Baseball playoffs this year have droughts, World Series droughts of 22, 29, 30, and 107 years. So whoever wins the World Series this year is going to be breaking some sort of streak.
Yes, they are.
And for me, that's awesome.
No, I agree. And for the Cubs, you got a lot of people saying it's not Back to the Future time. It's all Back to the Future. The movie, there was a news broadcast being played at one point where they say, and the Cubs have won the 2015 World Series.
And you want to know something crazy? That day falls October 21st, 2015, which is Game 4 of the NLCS at Wrigley Field.
Yes, it is.
Wouldn't that be something? Clinching a World Series trip on the day a movie made years ago said you were going to win it. That would be awesome. Somebody on I think it was the Rich Eisen show, pointed out that they should really do something with Back to the Future on that night. Have Michael J. Fox and Marty McFly and Doc Brown show up and throw out the first pitch in a DeLorean and stuff like that. Just make it, have some fun with it because it's fun. I mean, it's supposed to be fun. That's the point of it, right? If you're not having fun, you're not winning. If you don't have fun, you don't win. That's what they taught me in, like, 4th grade gym class.
The crazy part about tonight was
that?
Since the Dodgers moved to L.A. in 1958, they've never lost a winner-take-all playoff game until tonight.
For those who didn't hear that, because Louis, you did cut out, it's the first time since the Dodgers moved from Brooklyn to Los Angeles that they've lost a winner-take-all game. That's crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, you should agree because you did say it. Speaking of the Dodgers, Louis, have we seen the last of Don Mattingly in Dodger Blue?
It's possible. They always have a good team, and yet they can't advance, past a certain point. So it might be time to get a new manager, see if he can motivate them to be a little better than they are. But they have all the tools. They're just not utilized properly, it seems.
I think a lot of the problem is that they have overinvested in expensive bats that are mediocre. They have a lot of good talent on that team. Like if Yasiel Puig was healthy, I'm sure if they didn't trade away Matt Kemp, they probably would have had a little more pop in their lineup. But I digress.
Right.
There's no doubt about it that Mattingly I believe Don Mattingly is a decent manager. I mean, he's 446 and 363 in 5 years with the Dodgers. He's won the division 3 straight years. He's been in the playoffs 3 straight years. He has a 444 win percentage in the postseason. I think at some point in time, it may not be this year, it may not be next year, but they're going to pull the plug on Mattingly. Just get a different set of eyes in the organization. And with that being said, Mattingly will get scooped up within a week's time. A lot of people are connecting the dots and saying that if Mattingly goes in Los Angeles, Mattingly will probably end up in Miami.
Possible.
Makes sense. I want to move over to the NCAA now because there were some things that happened. A lot of things that happened this week. A lot of stuff.
Let me throw out another quick stat at you real quick before we move over there. This was the first time the Dodgers have lost in a winner-take-all game since they moved over. This was the first victory in a winner-take-all game for the Mets since Game 7 in the 1986 World Series.
That's not bad at all.
A lot of streaks been broken in these playoffs.
That's the best part about the playoffs, man. They're unpredictable. As I say, ball don't lie,
That's right.
I sounded so white right there, but I don't even care.
It's all good, man.
Moving over to NCAA football, Georgia running back Nick Chubb had a very gruesome knee injury. We don't know yet the extent of the injury. They said he tore his PCL, may have some ligament damage, but his leg bent the wrong way. The question I have for you, Lewis, is should players be allowed to go pro before I believe it's after your junior year or before your junior? You have to be like 3 years out of high school, right?
Yeah.
Do you think they should change that rule?
No.
Well,
No,
here's the example. Right. Here's the example that I have the reason I ask you. Not only Nick Chubb, but Leonard Fournette at LSU. He is by far, if he was to be able to go in the draft this year, by far he would be the number one pick at this point in time. But he can't. So does he sit out the season and take a hit because he sat the season out? Or does he play and risk potential of having what happened to Nick Chubb or what happened to Marcus Lattimore and potentially ruin your career because the NCAA says you have to play?
Right. Now, you know what? I mean, that's a tough one. It's not like the NBA when guys used to jump from, high school to the NBA and they'd have a career. They'd have a productive career. Obviously the NBA changed that rule too, but at the NFL, you can say what you want to about playing against the college players. It's a quick game. It's a fun, exciting game. Unfortunately, these injuries do happen. But when you step up to the NFL, you're playing against grown men.
It's a man's game for sure.
And coming right out of high school, I don't think that would be beneficial because you're still basically developing even at that time.
Well, that's one of the downfalls of the National Football League is there's no minor league system. It's not a thing where you can draft a guy. He's a sophomore in college. He can come out. You draft him, and then he plays in like NFL Europe used to be something like that, except not in Europe.
Right.
Where these guys can develop, and you can call them up or send them down as necessary, or they just you don't even call them up or send them down. Maybe it's like the NCAA, but for professional football players, where you get paid not as much, but you still get paid to play, and you're working your way up to the National Football League. I mean, that it'll never happen, but that to me seems like if that was to happen, they would be able to. They would be able to maneuver.
It's not a bad idea. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. The NBA has a developmental league, and of course, Major League Baseball. They got that. Their farm teams are basically a developmental league. And the National
Hockey League has swarms of different leagues throughout the entire world where players play, whether it's the AHL, the OHL, the QMJHL, the WHL, the CHL, whatever it may be. There are places for kids to develop while being owned by a franchise, where a kid gets drafted, and while he plays for the Portland Winterhawks, he's still owned by the Buffalo Sabres.
Right. So it may not be a bad idea for the the NFL to have something like that, but I still think it's important for them to get into a college-type atmosphere and play on that level because that game is so much quicker than when you're playing in high school.
Well, yeah, I don't ever think that if kids came straight out of high school, if that would the league would probably disintegrate very quickly, or it would be the league would be a lot more painful to watch than it already is, just because the quality of play and the quality of talent. It's like what's happening right now, for instance. The reason there's a crisis in the National Football League, I guess if you want to call it that. Offensive linemen are nowhere near as good as they used to be, and that's because in college football, offenses they're just playing spread offense. So kids come to the NFL and they have to play like a complex system where, not everything is spread, and there's just very bad offensive linemen everywhere, and no one's panning out. And it's starting to show now, and it may not be something that gets solved for, 5 or 10 years, but and it's crazy because in the era of franchise quarterbacks where you can't win without a franchise quarterback, the offensive lines are just absolute atrocious or tire fire, whatever you want to call it. They're not good at all.
Right.
So that's very interesting.
I say we bring back the XFL, and that could be the developmental league.
Never know. We'll see what happens. It's not a bad idea, though. University of Florida loses starting quarterback Will Grier. Apparently, he took a performance-enhancing substance. His coach said it was in a supplement he took, but that's no excuse, obviously, as the coach said, because you have to get everything cleared. So he's out. Not only does he lose a year being out for the season, but he also loses a year of eligibility. So his clock speeds up a year because of the suspension, which is fair. USC fires Steve Sarkisian after he reportedly showed up drunk. Now, we saw this has been an ongoing issue with him. First, we all hope he gets the help that he needs because alcoholism is nothing to joke about. But the thing is it seems as if the college knew there was a problem. Kind of like something we're going to talk about later with the Los Angeles Kings and forward Mike Richards. Where there's a problem going on, so you don't want to stop them because stopping them does not help you. It does not benefit you in the long run. Right. But when something goes down, you can pull the chute. That's what it seems like to me. Is behind the scenes they knew something was brewing up and there was a bad situation going on, and then once the final straw broke the camel's back, they pulled the chute and said, "We're not doing this anymore. We're not affiliated with him. He's fired. He can go on his merry way." So, a tough situation for sure. Hopefully, he gets the help that he needs.
Have you ever listened to the comedian named Mitch Hedberg?
Have I listened to Mitch Hedberg? Come on now. Yes, I have.
I mean, you said alcoholism is nothing to laugh at, and it made me think about one of his jokes, so I kind of chuckled. That's why I asked. The joke when he says alcoholism is a disease, but it's the only disease you can get yelled at. And then he was like, "Damn it, Otto, you got lupus. Damn it, Otto, you're an alcoholic." He was like, which one sounds worse?
I remember that joke. Mitch Hedberg's a funny guy. He was a funny guy.
I miss Mitch. He was hilarious.
Here's an interesting thing to point out about the USC job. Apparently, Rich Eisen tweeted out earlier today on Thursday that Baltimore head coach John Harbaugh was, quote, high on the short list of coaching candidates. Do you see John Harbaugh leaving the Ravens to go coach USC?
Why would you leave NFL money?
College money might be better, and you might have more control.
He would have more control. I don't think the money will be better.
You never know. You never with a school like USC, you never know.
That's true, but at the same token, the Ravens are starting to lose their luster. So you never know. He might jump ship.
It might also just be speaking of money. It also may just be a ploy to get a contract extension from the Baltimore Ravens.
True that.
We all know how agents work. Last thing before we move on to the National Hockey League, head ball coach Steve Spurrier resigns as head coach of South Carolina, the other USC, the East Coast USC, after a poor start. Apparently, he just had enough. He had been struggling with recruiting, and that was starting to hurt the school, hurt the team. He didn't retire. There was rumors he had actually retired, and he came out in a press conference the next day and said, "No, I'm just stepping away." So I'm assuming if a job comes open, he'll probably take it. But
right.
College football won't be the same without Steve Spurrier. So I do hope he gets back around and gets back involved. That's for sure.
Yeah, but he's had a very illustrious career. He's getting up there in age. It may be time to just ride off into the sunset and enjoy some of that money you've made.
Some of that money he made. A lot of that money he made. Moving over to the National Hockey League now, just a couple things really quick. Bad luck is always how the start of the National Hockey League season is for some guys, at least. But we always get bad luck, bad luck stories, all that stuff. That's where I'm going with that. Sorry, I just got lost there on my cell phone for a second. But Carolina Hurricane defenseman James Wisniewski tore his ACL 47 seconds into the season.
That sucks.
Horrible luck. I mean, he's had a penchant for being injured, but you got to feel for the guy. 47 seconds into his season, after that whole offseason of getting ready with a new team, he came over from the Anaheim Ducks, and he pops his knee.
That's horrible.
Now, as I mentioned before, we talked about I mentioned Mike Richards. Now, he was going after the team for wrongful termination because he got popped. They knew he had an issue with controlled substances and prescription pills. He got popped at the border, so they instantly cut his contract off the books, whatever. They lose the cap hit, all that stuff. Well, he goes to arbitration for a settlement to get some of the money back that he was owed in the deal because he lost all the cash. So he ends up getting about half of his original deal back, and he'll be on the books for the Los Angeles Kings until the end of the 2031-32 season, so 17 years. This year, it's a 3.12 cap hit from 2016-2017 to 2019-2020. It is a $1.57 million cap hit. 2020 to 2021 is $700,000. Then 2021 through 2023, it's $900,000. 2023 to 2025 is $700,000. 2025 until 2029, it's $600,000. Then 29-30 is $500,000. 30-31 is $500,000. Then 31-32 is $400,000. So, in a nutshell, Mike Richards gets back some of the cash that he was owed from the franchise, which it was kind of a dirty way to get out of the deal. But as we always say, Lewis, every professional sport is a business. And at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for business. And finding that loophole and jumping through the loophole and out the window was the best bet for them. I mean, it's grimy, and I'm glad that they got some cash thrown back on them and some of a cap hit thrown back on them because it's really screwed up what they did, but you understand why they did it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I completely understand why they did it. But, play the game. Sometimes you got to play by the rules that you don't like.
Now, right now, just checking out the standings here really quick. The Buffalo Sabres actually just dropped a game on Thursday night to the Florida Panthers. Now, it's early. It's early, obviously, so we'll just run down some stuff really quick. The Montreal Canadiens have started the season 5-0 for the first time in franchise history. They lead the Eastern Conference with 10 points. Detroit 3-0 with 6 points. The Florida Panthers starting off hot, 3-1 in 4 games with 6 points. Just scrolling down the list here, a couple surprises at the bottom towards the bottom of the Eastern Conference. First, Pittsburgh is 10th with a 1-3 record and 2 points, tied for 10th with the Buffalo Sabres and the Boston Bruins. In last place, 16th in the Eastern Conference, the Columbus Blue Jackets, a favorite of many to go deep in the playoffs, especially after acquiring Brandon Saad in the offseason. Like I said, they started off 0-4. Something certainly may have to change there really quick if they want to get their season back on track before falling too far behind. I know it's early, 82-game season, you're 4 games in, but starting off bad now can certainly hurt you in the long run. Moving over to the...
It can, but like you said, an 82-game season, you got a little bit of time to turn that around.
Yeah, but if you don't solve the problem now, you may think you fixed the problem, then it may creep back up and be 10 times as bad, something you could have solved now, and instead you ignore it and avoid it. In the Western Conference, there's a few more surprise teams. First off, Vancouver is 3-0-1, 7 points. They lead the Western Conference. San Jose 3-0. The funny thing about San Jose we all talked about is Pete DeBoer, the head coach who was now the head coach. He was the head coach of the Devils and the Florida Panthers. In his first year with franchises, they always do really well, and then after that they start to trail off. So it's funny to see San Jose start off hot early. The Arizona Coyotes, 3-0, which is shocking because a lot of people expected them to be bottom of the barrel, essentially the hot pick for Auston Matthews, the Auston Matthews sweepstakes. They've been surprising so far, and mostly because of Max Domi and Anthony Duclair. Obviously, Anthony Duclair they acquired from the Rangers last year at the deadline. I think that's a deal down the road that the Rangers are going to really regret because he's going to be a phenomenal hockey player. And Max Domi, who they drafted a couple seasons ago, really stepping up into his own. Scrolling down the list, Los Angeles is 13th out of 14 teams in the Western Conference with an 0-3 record. Anaheim, many people's favorites for the Stanley Cup. They're 0-2-1, 12th in the division. So also, last but not least, certainly, the lovable losers, the Edmonton Oilers, are 0-4-0 after their first 4 games. So a lot of hockey left to be played, but it never hurts to look and see where everything stands at this point in time. And it's a long season. We've got a lot of time to talk about hockey, so that's really all I have for the National Hockey League at this point.
Cool.
Moving over to the National Football League now. Miami is reportedly interested in acquiring head coach Sean Payton via trade. Do you see, maybe not to Miami, but do you see at any point in time this offseason Sean Payton leaving New Orleans?
Man, I don't know. I would have to say it depends on how the rest of this season goes. If the Saints finally start showing up, which today, Thursday night, it looked like they might be finally starting to show up, I can see them sticking around for another season. But if it looks like it's going to be a sinking ship, you might want to jump.
I mean, I think at this point, Sean Payton has, I don't know if outwore his welcome is the right terminology to use. I just feel like, maybe it's time for a change. Excuse me. As I'm trying to talk, and I have the hiccups as I'm trying to talk. Go out, trade some of your high-priced veterans, get pieces back, get a new head coach, a young head coach in there, and just try to rebuild the thing on the fly. I mean, because if you can turn they should have done this years ago, but, if you can turn high-priced talent into picks and young players, I mean, I know in football it's a little more difficult, but it might be time. I know other franchises like the New England Patriots have been able to do it where they are able to turn older players into younger players or picks that they turn into younger players who are helpful quick and early in the future. But I think Sean Payton goes somewhere this offseason. I don't know if it's Miami or if it's somewhere else, but I really think that someone will make the Saints an offer they can't refuse. And, once you cross that bridge, I don't think you can go back. Once you start looking at trades to trade your head coach, you can't go back and say, well, we have 100% faith in you, but we just tried to trade you. It'll probably end up being something like John Gruden with the Raiders and the Buccaneers, where the Buccaneers just really wanted John Gruden, so they dealt some stuff and got him.
Right.
Like I said, I'm not sure where he ends up if he does go. Miami makes sense, but I do know that there was some steam picking up in the wind in those sails this week, because there was some talk that maybe even Sean Payton is ready to give it a go somewhere else. But if they don't make the playoffs, he's fired. If they make the playoffs and don't win a game, he might be fired. But if they win a game in the playoffs or win a game or two, he's not going anywhere.
Right.
We saw last week Kansas City Chiefs running back Jamal Charles has an isolated ACL sprain. He's going to get a second opinion and surgical recommendation from Dr. James Andrews. He's out for the season. He's been put on the IR. But if it's not as bad as expected, he may be able to come back sooner. I know he's had some injuries before where he's a fast healer. So I'm not counting Jamal Charles out for next season by any stretch of the imagination. But a big blow for the Kansas City Chiefs, who have really struggled this season and really underwhelmed and not lived up to expectations at all.
Right. No, I agree with you. And but I mean, a sprain, obviously, if it's a sprain, that's a lot better than a tear.
Well, hey, you can't say that because a sprain is a tear. No matter, I mean, even it just all depends on the grade of the sprain. Obviously, a higher grade means more tearing. But the good news here, and I'm not sure why I'm not a doctor. I haven't done the research. I follow a guy on Twitter at Injury Expert. I know his first name is Will. He's a great follow for any sports fan. And his thing is whenever someone, like what you said, and it's understandable, a sprain, someone says, well, it's only a sprain, good thing it's not a tear, and then he just sends out an article and said, well, you should educate yourself. Because essentially a sprain is a tear.
But it's not a complete
No,
tear.
but there's still some tearing there, which is gonna complicate the process. It's gonna take time. But the one thing he pointed out is that if it is an isolated ACL sprain, if it's only that, it could be very good news. I mean, obviously the best of the worst, I guess. But I like I said, I don't see why he'll get it fixed up and he'll be back next season. No questions asked. Right. I mean, the one thing I'd be more worried about is whether or not Alex Smith is going to be under center because, I mean, Jamal Charles can only carry the load for so long, but that's a different conversation for a different time. Speaking of knees, Baltimore Raven cornerback Will Davis out for the year with a torn ACL, a big loss for them. New York Giants tight end Daniel Fells likely has ended his career due to a MRSA infection. Apparently he had turf toe or sprained toe or something like that. I think turf toe was a sprained toe. Or had a toe issue, had a cortisone injection in his toe, contracted MRSA from that. And it doesn't sound good. From what I was gathering last week, it sounds like he is struggling to keep his leg or his foot, I apologize, because the infection is really bad. Haven't heard anything the past couple days, but earlier this week that the news didn't sound very good. So hopefully he gets well soon, and if his football career's over, whatever, he'll have a nice chunk of cash coming to him in a lawsuit once he gets healthy and gets back on his feet. Because usually that's, I mean, the risk you're taking in an NFL locker room, but that shouldn't happen. So hopefully, like I said, hopefully he gets well soon and he's better.
MRSA is tough because it's antibiotic resistant,
Exactly, yeah, and that's the thing too, that happened to Lawrence Tynes in Tampa Bay, where it ended his NFL career because there was an infection that he ended up contracting, and there's not much you can do about it.
Now that's interesting. I mean, that it's going to end possibly his career because usually it's not really. MRSA tends not to be extremely serious sometimes.
It just they said it all depends on how he reacts to the antibiotics, because apparently, like I said, his foot was in bad shape.
Right. I mean, it can be like sometimes it's life threatening, but the instances of that is very low.
I would assume it matters. I would assume it matters how it would matter how late you catch it, as well as how bad it actually is.
Right.
But again, we're not doctors. We're just podcasters, so we only know as much as we talk.
That's true. That's true.
Like I tell people, what do I know? I'm just a stupid blogger. That's my line. Don't take it.
Right.
New England offensive lineman Nate Solder out for the season with a torn bicep. A big loss for them. Speaking of big losses, the Buffalo Bills place safety Aaron Williams on the IR designated to return with a neck injury. Now, we've seen how the Buffalo Bills have played without Aaron Williams in the lineup. Duke Williams has not been very good at safety, and he'll likely be the starting safety this week against the Bengals. Big loss for the Buffalo Bills defense. Hopefully they can recover from it. They have not had much luck this season with injuries, which leads me to my next point. Buffalo Bills quarterback Tyrod Taylor suffered an MCL sprain last week against the Tennessee Titans when he was horse collar tackled. He finished the game, and he may not. There's talk he could miss a couple games, but at this point, he may not even miss Sunday. I mean, I would assume the Bills would be smart enough to sit him out. He's been practicing with a brace on his knee, but just the Buffalo Bills cannot catch a break with the injuries this season.
No, they can't. Which is too bad because, I thought they were going to be pretty tough this year.
I mean, they might be able to limp into a wild card spot right now.
Right.
As one of our friends over at BLTDsports.com, Joe DiBiase, points out, the Buffalo Bills heading into this week are in the playoffs. Like if the saying goes, if the season ended today, but we're here to talk and have fun and enjoy ourselves. So, if we're going to do a playoff preview in week 5 or week 6, we're going to do a playoff preview in week 5 or week 6. So right now, like I said, the Bills are in the playoffs, but I mean, can EJ Manuel carry the team for a couple weeks? I'm sure they can work an offense around him where you can protect EJ, but you can also score some points. I know Sammy Watkins is likely to play this weekend. LaShawn McCoy may play this weekend. They may let him sit out another week just to be safe. But, I mean, it looks like, the things are coming back together, but you just have to protect the talent and stay as healthy as possible.
No, I agree. And Sammy Watkins coming back would definitely be a boost for that offense. He's not real happy with his, with his touches. He came out today and, basically said he wasn't happy with the amount of production they're giving him. But you've been on the bench, bro. So
he thinks the thing about Watkins that I'm very interested in is that he spoke out because he feels that if he's more involved in the offense will be better. Not just because he'll be getting 100 yards and a touchdown, but because if Watkins is a role player as a number 1 wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills, it opens more stuff up for Charles Clay. It opens up more stuff for Percy Harvin. It opens up more stuff for LaShawn McCoy. So I understand the point he's trying to make is that
me too.
He needs to be more involved in the offensive playbook and try to get the ball to him more, because it almost sometimes seems like they're afraid to throw the ball to him because Darrelle Revis is on him or someone like that. And
right.
he's pretty much saying, I'm a damn good wide receiver, throw me the ball, and we'll make this thing better together. We'll be better together. It wasn't, I want the ball because I want good stats. It was, I want to be better as a team, and I know if you spread the ball out more, the offense will be better by default just because you can't double cover everybody.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree with that. He's an awesome wide receiver. I just feel like you sat out for 2 games.
He's got to stay healthy. He has to stay healthy.
Right. So when you come back and you're healthy, if it doesn't start to happen, then you got a legitimate gripe. But
I'm sure if he's back this weekend, you'll see a ton of stuff going his way.
Yeah, and that's where I'm nervous about that because he's on my bench in my fantasy football league, in John's league. And I don't know how healthy he's going to be. I also have Tyrod Taylor as my quarterback, who I'm probably going to have to sit this week. So we'll see.
You can start EJ Manuel if you want to.
No, I'm going to start Russell Wilson.
That's a good idea. We'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys in just a second. I had something I wanted to mention, but we'll get to that when we get to that part of the Pick'em. Last week, week 5 of the Gear Network Pick'em. Lewis, you went 9-5. I went 8-6. John went 7-7. So that brings our record this week, week 6. I am 47-30. Lewis is 45-32. John is 46-31. Now, it being Friday morning, 12:59 a.m. to be exact. Thursday Night Football already happened. We all picked the Atlanta Falcons, and why not? They were undefeated. the New Orleans Saints hosted the Atlanta Falcons, and Lewis, you mentioned before the show, and I was thinking the same thing too. It felt like a classic trap game where New Orleans has not been great, but they can play up to and beyond a current team that they're playing against. Like they're an interesting franchise.
Absolutely.
And
but I agree.
They really took the challenge this evening and ran with it and showed the National Football League that, hey, we're not dead yet. I mean, the Falcons are 4-1. It's not going to hurt them.
No, not at this point.
And I mean, they picked a hell of a week to lose because Carolina travels to Seattle. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But you pick a good week to lose, I guess, if you're going to lose. But kind of shocked me how the game ended up, but
right.
Not surprised that New Orleans won.
Atlanta did not look good for the first three quarters. I mean,
no.
They struggled to move the ball. They couldn't stop the Saints on defense. I was actually really surprised how easily the Saints were able to move the ball on them. And like you said, I mean, we were talking about it a little bit before we started recording. I actually almost went with the Saints this week because I felt like, at one point they're going to have to open up their offense and play like we know they can play. And they were at the Superdome, and really, they looked like a team that was playing like they were desperate. And being 1-4, you are desperate at this point, And it looks like that's how they played. They looked good tonight.
And I mean, the game was, the game was very close. It was 31-21 New Orleans. New Orleans is 2-4. Sorry, Atlanta's 5-1, not 4-1. Atlanta's 5-1 in the NFC South. Saints are 2-4. But Drew Brees threw for 30 for 39, which is a damn good day. 312 yards a touch. Matt Ryan 30 for 44, 295 and 2 touches. You can't ask for much more. Devonta Freeman 13 carries, 100 yards and a touch. Mark Ingram had 2 touchdowns. I mean, Julio Jones had 93 yards. Benjamin Watson had a day. He was 12 targets, 10 receptions, 127 yards and a touch. The thing that interests me is the sacks. New Orleans had 5 sacks of Matt Ryan, and that to me, also Atlanta having 5 fumbles and losing 3 of them. Those 2 things, to me, really show where the game turned. Also, the fact that Atlanta was called for 7 penalties for 41 yards. That also, those 3 things right there can really be pointed out.
And
Atlanta really show you where they lost the game.
Oh yeah, Atlanta was in the red zone twice and fumbled the ball.
Also, Atlanta was 3 for 12. They were 3 for 12 on third downs this evening as well.
And you can't do that. You want to win a game, you can't do that.
Not at all. I'm just looking through the stats right now. Looking at the rest of the week, we have one matchup where we don't agree. John and I have the Chicago Bears, and Lewis, you have the Detroit Lions. So you have the Lions picking up their first win of the season this week against the Chicago Bears, who have shown that they're a little potent. They can, here or there, they can do some things. Why did you pick the Detroit Lions?
Because they're another team that I feel like have not been playing up to their potential.
Not at all. At some point in time, they have to break out of whatever slump that they're stuck in.
And I feel that if any team that they can break out against the slump against is going to be Chi-Town. I think Chi-Town's defense is a little weak, and I think they'll be able to finally get themselves a little win. And, if they don't win this week, though, I want to see that 0-15 season.
They need to – I feel like at some point in time they need to fire Jim Caldwell. I just don't think he's a great coach. Yeah. And I'm not the only one that thinks that. I mean, Chicago's 2-3 in the North. Detroit's 0-5. Like I said, I think that no doubt about it, it's going to be – I mean, it's probably going to be a boring game. I'm just looking through the statistics here. Offensive-wise, Chicago averages 316.4 yards. That's 27th in the league. Detroit 321.2. That's 26th in the league. So the offenses are not very good. Passing offense for Detroit is decent. Defenses, though, that may be where the difference is. Chicago, 7th in the league with 304.6 yards allowed per game. Detroit allows 375.4, which is 23rd in the league. Chicago has the 4th best passing defense in the league, tied for the 4th best at 185.8 yards per game. So it'll be interesting to see if the very good passing defense can stop the decent passing offense of the Detroit Lions. I think that'll probably be where the game is decided, is if Matt Stafford can throw for 302 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, the game is going to be Detroit's. But if they shut him down, that's going to be that.
Yeah, no, that's true. I just, like I said, I just feel like this may be the week that Detroit finally breaks out, kind of like the Saints did today.
Absolutely. I can see it happening for sure. We all picked Cincinnati over Buffalo with the quarterback question mark plus defensive question marks and Cincinnati being undefeated. You'd be dumb not to go with the Bengals. Denver over Cleveland, Houston over Jacksonville, Minnesota over Kansas City, the Jets over Washington, Arizona over Pittsburgh, Tennessee over Miami, Seattle over Carolina, which is interesting because this game to me is one of those games where if you want to prove to the National Football League that you are for real, you go to Seattle and you win that game. And I know I've said this on the podcast before multiple times, especially last year in the playoffs. I remember with the Cowboys, we talked about it, where the Cowboys going into Seattle, and I flat out said, if you want to prove it, if you want to prove to the league that you're for real, go into Seattle, beat the Seahawks. So Cam Newton, if you're listening to the podcast right now, #Podcat, if you're listening right now, Cam Newton, go to Seattle, beat the Seahawks, prove us wrong, show us your #4real, and I'll pick for you. I'll pick on your team. I'll pick the Panthers next week. I don't care.
Yeah, but this is one of those games.
You gotta go to Seattle and do it. You gotta do the damn thing.
Yeah, and I mean, and this is one of those games where you're going into an unfriendly environment. Seattle very rarely loses at home. Seattle's a little bit behind the 8 ball, which is a position that they've not been in like 3 seasons. And Seattle, they're another team. They have something to prove to the rest of the NFL that they're not finished. And so I can see this being a game where, they put up big numbers on them. And I think that Seattle's defense will be more than up to the task to beat Carolina.
Well, here's
Carolina, I should say.
Here's the deal. Carolina's defense 3rd in total yards allowed. Seattle's 8th in total yards allowed. Carolina has the best rush defense in the league, and Seattle has the most rushing yards per game. So that'll probably be where that game is decided. And I don't know if Marshawn Lynch is going to play, but Thomas Rawls is going to be in the lineup, no doubt about it. And he has been fantastic to this point.
Right.
So that'll probably be a game to watch for sure. I mean, like I said, Carolina's 4-0, Seattle's 2-3. If Seattle loses, I don't know what that does for their season, but if Carolina loses, it's a drop in the bucket. It's one loss. So from here on out, it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. But I really at this point, and this is a shout out to our music correspondent Paul Wagner of Between the Buried and Me, friend of the podcast. I want to see his Panthers do something fun and be a fun team because it's been a little while. Where they've actually been a legitimate threat in the NFC and the NFC South. I want to see, and I could be wrong there. I'm spewing crap right now. I could be, I don't know. I just don't feel like Cam Newton has ever been threatening, and I want to see Cam Newton have a good team, go to the playoffs, and actually do something, and actually make a mark.
I wouldn't say that Cam
Newton's a lot of fun.
I wouldn't say Cam Newton's never been threatening. I feel that Cam Newton's always been one of those quarterbacks that has the potential to be real threatening. I just don't think he's had the pieces around him like he does now.
Well, he still has no receivers.
Yeah.
But You make the best of the worst situation, I guess, and if that's what he's doing, that's what he's doing. Moving over to the bye week teams real quick. Tampa, St. Louis, Oakland, and Dallas all have the bye this week. But, Lewis, that brings me to my final question of the podcast, of the sports part of the podcast. What are your thoughts on the Dallas Cowboys taking the ball from Brandon Weeden, and giving the start to Matt Castle next week?
I think it's something they definitely have to explore and possibly have they come out and say they're going to do it?
I believe that sources said that it's going to be Matt Castle's team. Now, is it a sign of desperation, or is it them just saying we got to try what we have to try?
I think it's a sign of them trying what they have to try. I mean, Brandon Weeden, he comes out sometimes and he looks awesome, and then he gets into an actual starter role as he has this year, and he's looked horrible.
Well, yeah, the stats right there with that one, the stats do not lie. When he comes in relief, he's almost untouchable. When he actually is, when a team prepares for him and he has, they know he's going to start, he doesn't do very well.
No, not at all. And we've seen it a couple of times where he'll come in and just be lights out for a half if Tony Romo is hurt for that half, and then he gets to start and he's garbage on a plate.
Speaking of garbage on a plate, man, garbage plates do sound pretty damn good right now.
No doubt.
I'm hungry as hell now. Thanks.
No problem.
I want to move over now to just random talking stuff. I do want to talk about that concert, man.
Hold on a second, real quick.
I don't want to hold on. You make me hungry. I want to go get a garbage plate now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is Jimmy C's open this late?
Yeah.
No, you're out of Brockport, so.
I just don't know if I want to get a plate at
1:14 at night, 2 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? So.
Maybe Sunday night I'll do that.
Maybe it's possible. Man, I completely forgot what I was going to say.
You're welcome.
No problem. Thanks, man.
You're welcome. That's what you get for making me hungry. Talk about garbage plates, man. I return the favor. If you get it, let me know. We still got some time. So go to the concert. Talk about Motley Crue now. Over onto non-sports stuff. Get to the concert and they're still sound checking, which is really odd. So we get in a little late. Watch Alice Cooper or some opening act, which I think they were called. I can't remember what they were called. There was a C name, C something, whatever. They weren't bad. But Alice Cooper comes on, plays, does a great set, whatever. And then Motley Crue comes out and starts playing, and instantly I knew something was different. Drum set wasn't the same. The drum set sounds weren't the same. The way that the drummer was acting was not the same. Tommy Lee did not play. He came out a couple songs into the set and said that he was woken up at 3 a.m. with sharp pains in his wrist. Went to a doctor, and they said he had really bad tendonitis in his wrist. He couldn't even pick up a drumstick, let alone play a full show. So we got to see Motley Crue with Alice Cooper's drummer, which sucked, but it was still Motley Crue. I was kind of bummed out because it's not the same without the four guys in the band, but
right.
As they say, shit happens, And it was cool because after the show on Thursday morning, you go on Facebook and you look the guy up, which I believe his name is Glenn Sobel, Sobel or Sobel. He was talking about how he grew up listening to Motley Crue, and then last night or Wednesday night, he got to play with one of his favorite bands in his entire life. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. It wasn't as smooth or as well-rounded or as flawless as a normal Motley Crue show was. I was kind of pissed, too, because there was no drum roller coaster, which that's another thing they gave it away, too, is that there was no drum coaster set up, which is Tommy Lee's signature thing for this tour, where he just spirals out over the crowd and then plays and spirals back. It's really cool stuff. If you get a chance, check it on YouTube. But No, he did that once before when I was around your age. Crew came to Rochester, and he had a very similar setup where the he's not doing like like I know I think it was Theater of Pain, he did the one where he had like a forklift and he just spun in circles. This one he actually goes up and probably 3/4 of the way through the arena and then comes back on like a giant drum coaster.
That's pretty cool. No, the one that he had before didn't go that far, but it definitely went over the crowd.
Yeah, it came off the stage, went over the crowd, and there's a video I think from like '89, where he's playing in Tacoma, and it's one of the better drum solos that you can find on the internet. But yeah, it sucks. I mean, it wasn't one of the greatest concerts I've ever been to, because once they announced that, once Tommy came out and said he couldn't play, the crowd definitely was dead. I mean, it always seems like Buffalo concerts are dead because the people are just, I mean, maybe I just go to too many concerts with old people, but I mean, I go see Kiss, Van Halen, and Motley Crue, so that's probably where the problems lie, but it just seemed like the crowd was dead once they came out and said that Tommy wasn't going to play. And I mean, he came out and played the piano for Home Sweet Home and all that stuff, but it just, it sucked. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great,
Right. It wasn't a full Motley Crue concert.
No, it was Motley Crue and Alice Cooper's drummer. So it was
right.
And like I said,
Alice
stuff was off.
Cooper,
Stuff wasn't timed well, but the guy
right.
the guy learned at 12:30 that afternoon. They called him and said, "Can you play tonight?" And then he went and sat with Tommy Lee and made a cheat sheet, and was reading off of a cheat sheet while he was drumming. Like, he had a little light with a little table next to him, and he was reading off the sheet as he's playing. So I mean, you got to give him credit where credit's due.
Yeah, that's got to be extremely difficult to do. So there's some props to him. But I've seen Motley live. Alice Cooper is one of the guys who I would have liked to see live and never really got a chance to.
He puts on one hell of a stage show, tells a very good story throughout the songs that he plays and how he plays them. I saw him a couple months or last summer, when Motley Crue last came around, and it was phenomenal. I mean, Alice Cooper was great, and he was great again a couple nights ago. It's weird too, Motley Crue and Alice Cooper in an arena, because I don't feel that they're arena bands. Like their
right.
sound is not made for arenas. I mean, maybe back in the day, but now it's just loud as hell, and they just blow up a lot of stuff. I know, like Nikki Sixx and Vince Neil came out. They looked like forklifts that shot it over the crowd, and they came out and dangled over the crowd and sang and played the bass, and explosions and confetti and everything everywhere. And I mean, definitely get your money's worth, but like I said, it just bummed me out, because I had a feeling like when we showed up and they were still sound checking, I was like, something doesn't seem right. Something's not sitting well.
Right.
And then, no drum coaster, and then Tommy comes out, and you're just like, shit, this sucks bad.
Yeah, but at least you got to see him again.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sixth time I've seen Motley Crue, and the last time I'll see Motley Crue. So it's after this tour, they're I think they have like 32 or 33 shows left.
Right.
So it's coming down to the final couple shows for Motley Crue. So
you've seen them as many times as I've seen Metallica.
I've seen Metallica once, and it was good. It was at First Niagara Center back in 2009.
I've seen them 6 times.
They're very good live.
They're awesome live, yeah.
They just never go tour anymore.
Well, they do. They just don't really come here.
No, if you go to Europe, you can go see them, once every 6 months. Or if you want to pay $400 for a ticket and travel to Montreal, you can go see them. But
right.
They say we're going to go on a tour, and then they go do 3 shows in America and then like 25 shows overseas.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, I'm gonna go to France to see Metallica. Like, I like Metallica. I don't like Metallica that much.
Yeah, but you know what? The weird part is, when they were in their heyday, that death metal, speed metal, hair metal, like America audiences, especially the younger generation, there's not a lot of people that still listen to that type of music. It's made a resurgence, but not a large one. But Europe is still heavily into that music, which is why a lot of the bands tour Europe, because they still love that stuff, and of course the older generation, people my age and a little older, they still like that generation, that type of music. But it's not, it's not something where you're going to get a lot of people your age listening to it.
Well, it's great too because if you watch any videos of any festivals over in Europe, it is magnificent, absolutely magnificent. Because some of the bands that they get to play the shows, and then what those bands play on the show, it's phenomenal.
No, I agree.
Like it's with Metallica. With Metallica, it's not that they're that they don't want to do it, that they're old, that they're tired, bored, whatever it may be. Like when they go play those shows, they play hard as hell, and they'll rip your face off, and
they play a lot of their older stuff.
Yeah, they'll come and just rip, like I said, rip your face off, play music as fast as they want to, as loud as they want to. They don't care. Lars will play out of time, whatever. It's Metallica, but. Like, I would love to see them come back around.
I agree with you.
I would love for them to come out with a new album, too. That would be nice any day now.
They released one last year, like, on the DL.
What one was that?
It was either last year or 2 years ago. They released one very low-key.
The one with Lou Reed?
I don't think so.
I know they released a song, but I don't think they've released like an album besides the Lou Reed one, which was absolute garbage. So I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, I have to look that up because I listened to it and it was actually pretty good. And it was a throwback type of album where it was a lot of the old style death metal type stuff.
Interesting.
Because they released one. And then, 3 weeks later, Megadeth released one, and once again, it was, very low-key. They didn't really tell a lot of people. Which is kind of weird.
I'm going to look it up right now, because I am intrigued.
I might be wrong. It might have been the Lou Reed one, but I don't think so, because I listened to it, and I enjoyed it.
Well, we'll see. Just gonna Wikipedia it. Oh, was it Through the Never?
Yes.
It was that was just a live album.
Oh, was it a live album?
Yeah. Pretty sure. They've kind of They've kind of lived off that stuff for a little while now. It was a soundtrack, but it was, it was just all live stuff. Because like I said, I know they released a song a little while back, but I mean, Metallica has not really done much. I know they put out a live album, Quebec Magnetic, and they did Through the Never, and then which was just pretty much the same thing, just with a movie around it. And now apparently they're back in the studio again, but whatever, just put a damn CD out and come on tour. I want to see you. Thanks.
Oh yeah, that was 2012 when they released that.
Yeah.
But hey, they're really good live. So a live
they're fantastic live. When I saw them, it was just phenomenal.
Yeah, they were supposed to release a studio album this year.
They're still working on it though.
But they're still working on it, so it probably won't.
Speaking of studio albums, the Foo Fighters already have written 5 songs for their new album, which is mind blowing because their tour is not even over yet. But they've written and recorded 5 songs for their new album, which is pretty cool. So hopefully they come around, because we all kind of got the shaft with the Sonic Highways tour because they decided to do stadiums instead of arenas or amphitheaters. So hopefully they come shooting back around and play First Niagara or Blue Cross Arena. Because I'd love to see him, because I was going to go see him in Boston, but apparently not apparently, it's the truth. I suck at saving money because my job is terrible. Only for one more day will my job be terrible, but it's hard to save money when you don't make a lot of money. So,
right. Hey, were you the person that posted that picture? From like reposted that picture of the girl who put up a picture of Dave Grohl that said, "Is it just me, or does the lead singer from the Foo Fighters look a lot like the bass player from Nirvana?"
The drummer from Nirvana?
Drummer from Nirvana, yeah.
I post those all the time. Yeah.
I was like, wow, that person.
I'm such an asshole. I don't even care.
No, you didn't post that. Like it was a repost from someone.
No, that's what I'm saying. I just post that stuff. I just post that. If I see stupid stuff like that, I will be the first one in line to post it again.
Yeah, I was like that person's a freaking idiot. A freaking idiot.
It's hilarious.
So I went to see, while you were at Motley Crue, I went to see a double feature.
Okay.
At the cinema on South Clinton, of Ant-Man and Straight Outta Compton.
And what did you think?
I had not seen Straight Outta Compton yet. I was looking forward to seeing that. I hadn't seen Ant-Man yet. Really wanted to see it. I thought Ant-Man was awesome. I really enjoyed Ant-Man. And then Straight Outta Compton, dude, that movie blew me away. That movie was so freaking good. It was so well produced. Obviously, there was some things that they glossed over that they didn't really talk about, which I get. You really just want to tell the story of probably the most influential rap group of all times in NWA. And there were some moments, man, where I'm not going to lie to you, like I got a little misty during a couple moments. They did a really good job of portraying what they went through, and the struggles that they had to go through, and how they got ripped off by, the first manager. And I tell you what, I don't know who the actor was that played Eazy-E, but he looked just like Eazy-E. It was almost as if Eazy-E actually didn't die of HIV, of AIDS, and they just been giving him like really good lotion for the last 15, 16 years. Because that dude looked just like Eazy-E.
I look forward to seeing that. I look forward to seeing that again.
Yeah, and then the dude who played Suge Knight was just as scary as Suge Knight was back in the day. So it was a really good movie. I went to see it with my sister, and when we left, she looked at me and she said that she was like, "Wow, it's like they got a time machine and got Eazy-E to play this role." And she was like, and the dude that played Ice Cube, like he looked just like Ice Cube, and I was like, "Well, yeah, that's Cube's son." She was like, "Well, that explains it." He was real good.
Looking back on that movie, it's very convenient how they forgot to point out the fact of how terrible Dr. Dre is to women, but in your own movie, I guess you can do whatever you want.
But, but you know what? Like
that was really the only thing. Well, that was really the only thing that kind of disappointed me, was that like they made sure to point out specific things that highlighted that made their story a little bigger, a little more glow behind, a little more glitz and glamour, and then they just look past the bad stuff. Like if they ever did anything bad, it never happened according to this movie. But all the good stuff happened tenfold. But I mean, don't get me wrong, dude. That was one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. And the craziest part about it is the guy who directed that film has just signed on to do the 8th Fast and the Furious movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, F. Gary Gray signed on to do Fast 8 or Furious 8 or whatever they're going to call it. So, I mean,
But
like
they'll be returning to New York City.
That's what they were saying. Yeah, that's what they're hinting at. But like I have to see I have to see Ant-Man again because I've seen everything else. I caught up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I'll tell you what. Anybody out there that's on the fence about watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I understand it's 45 minutes an episode. It takes a little while to catch up on it, but season 3 just started, and holy hell, like that show, it takes the first season was probably 7 or 8 episodes for me to get into it, but once I got into it, I was hooked. And then season 2, same thing, a little slow,
right,
but it hooked me quicker. And season 3, it started, and I was just like, I'm already here. It's just really good.
right.
Plus, they might be making might be making the Inhumans movie to couple with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so it may all actually work out in the long run.
Yeah, that'd be cool. The Inhumans were pretty cool. I thought it was interesting that they jumped straight to the second Ant-Man and didn't really focus on Pym being the first. I get why they did it, because they want to bring it into this new, the new Marvel universe with the movies. But I thought the movie was really well done. It was really, really funny. And I enjoyed it. And yeah, I mean, straight out of Compton, like I said, they definitely just glossed over some stuff, like the fact that Dre did have a history of being not really nice to women. But he got help for that. He's not like that anymore. So fortunately, he learned his lessons there. But it did really portray some of the stuff that they, some of the really bad stuff that they went through, like when Dre lost his brother. So there was a lady, I should say, sitting in the row in front of us, and probably 4 to 5 seats to my left. And like, if you go see a movie with me, I'm probably going to talk during the movie sometimes, but I really didn't do that last night. But during Straight Outta Compton, that's the stuff I grew up on. I know all that music. And so there was a dude sitting across the aisle from me who was really into it, an older black gentleman. And then there was me, and I'm like saying the lyrics with the songs when they're rapping them. And this lady kept turning around and giving me dirty looks. And at one point, I was like, "What, lady? I'm not, like, interrupting the acting because I'm saying exactly what the actors are currently saying. So calm down." It was kind of funny. She was not happy with me, but I didn't care.
Hey, one last thing I want to point out to you is that speaking of Marvel, I don't know if you saw the report today or on Thursday, but apparently a couple weeks ago Marvel said we're going to come out with a couple new movies, but they didn't say anything more about what they would be. Well, reports today on Thursday, like I said, came across that Marvel and Fox have traded. Fox has gained the rights to, I believe, an X-Men TV series, and Marvel has gained the rights back to the Fantastic Four franchise.
Fantastic Four, yep.
So in 2020, we may finally get a Fantastic Four film that isn't complete dog crap and that is supposed to. They say supposed to because, it's Fantastic Four. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. But it is supposed to intertwine in the Marvel universe, or the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I apologize.
That would be good because the Fantastic Four was a pretty big part of that at certain times, especially when it came to, like, Galactus or the Infinity Gauntlet. Like, they had big roles. Not big roles, but they were, they were there. I'll be interested to see what they do with it because right now in the Marvel Universe, they've kind of gone back to the whole Infinity Gauntlet thing, and that's where this is leading up to with Thanos. So it'll be interesting to see what they do afterwards, because right now Dr. Doom is one of the more powerful people in the galaxy. there was a series where there was a guy named the Beyonder who was basically a god. And he was able to just alter time, destroy people, make people just completely disappear. And Dr. Doom recently stole his powers. And the Black Panther recently got the Infinity Gauntlet, making him one of the more powerful peoples in the Marvel Universe. And it looks like there's going to culminate to a big fight with these guys, and it'll be interesting to see if they incorporate any of that in there, especially with a Fantastic Four movie coming in 2020, knowing that Dr. Doom was one of their biggest nemesis.
Well, and the question is, do we get a Fantastic Four origin film and then another movie, or do we just get a movie where we're neck deep in it?
I feel like you almost got to produce a movie that's your neck deep in it because you kind of know the origins. You know what I'm saying? I think they would have to touch upon the origin. Or
it may be something where it may be something where Fantastic Four people start to show up.
Right.
Like I know Spider-Man in one of the next Marvel movies, Spider-Man's going to show up.
He'll be in Civil War.
Yeah, but then he'll have a movie coming out a couple of years later. So it's always interesting to see how things work out and how they intertwine. That's why I get so, like I told you before, that's why I get so into it, because there's so much going on that just when you think you know it all, there's more to figure out. There's more to learn. There's more to educate yourself with.
Right. Well, one of the things I'm excited about, speaking of movies, and I posted this last night on my Facebook page, they're going to be releasing some more monster movies. And the company that did Godzilla recently acquired the rights to King Kong, Rodan, King Ghidorah, I believe Mothra. So we might see some really big monster movies coming out too, and that excites me because I loved Godzilla.
Oh, I know. You don't got to tell me twice, man.
So 2017, we're going to see a King Kong movie, which is by the same people that did Godzilla. 2018, there's going to be Godzilla 2, and then 2020, there's going to be a Godzilla versus King Kong movie.
That'll be fun.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. Especially if they hold true. What's up?
No, you keep going. I'm not stopping you.
I was just going to say, especially if they hold true to like the original Godzilla versus King Kong, which a lot of people don't notice, but there's actually 3 versions of that movie. There's the Japanese cut, where at the end, where they're having a big fight scene, and they roll into the water, Godzilla beats King Kong and kind of sends him on his way, and he's kind of standing there underwater like, yeah, what? And you see King Kong swimming away. Then there's the international version where they roll into the water, you can tell they're fighting, and that's kind of how it ends. And then there's the American version where King Kong, they make it look like King Kong wins. They roll into the water's churning, and then you see King Kong swimming away like he beat Godzilla. But the original version, Godzilla beats King Kong. So if they keep true to something like that, or even if they make it a stalemate so they can keep this franchise going, I'd be cool with that. But I'm looking forward to them actually producing some more stuff, like another Rodan movie or another, or a King Ghidorah movie or a Ghidorah movie. Well, that's Ghidorah. Or a Gamera movie. That'd be awesome. Or a Jet Jaguar movie. You don't even know how much I would mark for a Jet Jaguar movie.
There are so many things that can be done. That's why this stuff is so much fun to talk about. You got to get into it, though. If you're not into it, it's not fun.
I got to close my sunroof. Start the rain.
Okay. I was gonna say I'm wrapping up over here because I'm falling asleep. It's 20 to 2. I've been sleeping like absolute crap lately, so I probably should get going and get to bed.
Cool, bro.
I want to say thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
As usual. Next week we'll probably do an after or an early evening podcast. Maybe if we can get on, we'll do something like a Google Hangout or something where you, John, and I can get on and talk sports. Because my new job starts next week, so I work 9 to 5, 9 to 5:30 for 5 weeks.
To make a living.
Gotta do what you gotta do, man. But
Right.
So for 5 weeks we'll probably do early podcasts, and then we'll change after that. But we'll keep everybody posted. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. As usual,
Yes,
you guys are the best. Check out BLTDsports.com. We're putting new stuff up every day. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/BLTD Podcast. At Twitter, on Twitter, at BLTD Sports. I'm at Wolf BLTD. Lewis is at MRLG Perez. With that being said, there's only one thing left to say. We are better live than dead.
You're not.
We will be back, as usual, next week. Same time, same place, exclusively on the Gear Radio Network.